Welcome. Welcome and good morning. Good morning. I'm Jenna Hazen. I'm a worship committee member, and I am your worship liaison for the month of March. So I'm leading this service today, and we're going to start as we trickle in with announcements, any that were not in the email that went out. And also, a point of clarification, I realize I don't know what time book club is meeting at your house, Linda. 6? Okay. Okay, very good. All right. Any other announcements that were not in the... Yours was in the email. It was in the email, don't worry. Okay. Yes.
And also, my dog recently died. I'm having a goodbye at 2:30 today for anyone interested. I'd appreciate the support. Thank you.
It's at her house. It's in the email. So, because no one's going to remember the address off the top of their heads.
Hi, I'm hanging a art show at the library tomorrow. It will be ready to be looked at on Tuesday, and I invite you all to come see a walk around Spring Meadow Lake.
Hi everyone. One of my colleagues at work, they just found out that their son, who's an elementary kid, has cancer. It's part of his liver and it's spread to his lungs. And it's a very shocking thing for the family, and they're flying out to get specialized support out of the state. But if you could definitely keep them in your heart as they go through this, it's very tragic. Thank you. I'll have to look at my text messages.
The foundation that I'm trying to raise money for with Miss Health and Fitness.com/2026/ Katrin-on-Campbell begins with a K. The family that began the foundation, their son died of cancer, and his name is Andrew. So if that name helps with anything as well, thank you.
Okay, you got it.
His name is Grayson.
All right. Okay. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children, or your partner, or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. We acknowledge that we're in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, and Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. And now Catherine is going to come forward to light the chalice as we read together from our order of service. Okay, fine. flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. And now for our first hymn, which is in the Singing Living Tradition hymnal, number 38, a personal favorite of mine, Morning Has Broken. Please stand as you're willing and able.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Thank you all. And now we have a responsive reading, so if Georgia could come forward. I will read the plain text, and Georgia will read the italics with all of you. We belong to the earth. This we know. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
This we know. All things are connected like the blood which unites one family.
All things are connected.
Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth.
We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it.
Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves.
Thank you. Oh, you've got them. Thank you. Okay. Oh, are there more? They're just blank ones. It's okay. I'm going to read our joys and concerns that were put in our bowl. Here's one from Marianne, which I think we will all agree with. War is bad, peace is good. And I have a joy today for my family and friends who are visiting, and also our community on YouTube. I feel very fortunate for our YouTube broadcast. It allows some friends from back home to get to tune in and be involved in our community from afar. Oh, yeah, okay, story for all ages. So Asher, if you could turn on the screen, please. So if the kids are, oh, my bad. I forget every time about the mic. If the kids can come forward to sit with me if they want to. This is not a regular picture book. It doesn't really have any pictures. So the slideshow is just for fun. So you can come forward and sit with me. I don't bite very hard. And we'll read the story, which is a Blackfoot folktale So these are the Blackfoot stories. They're called coyote stories, and they're all stories about people and animals. And this one's called The Bear Who Stole the Chinook. So in order for the story to make sense, everyone needs to know one thing. So does anyone know what a Chinook is? Anybody? Okay, Georgia, what's a Chinook?
It's a warm wind.
It is a warm wind. It's a very warm wind. It's called the snow eater. It's so warm that it goes and it eats up all the snow. Okay, so The Bear Who Stole the Chinook. In this long ago year, the snow came early and lay deep. The wind blew. You can kind of see it up there. That's what a Chinook arch looks like. That's one over Great Falls before any of you were born. In this long ago year, the snow came early and lay deep. The wind blew from the north, cold and bitter, and the Chinook did not come. The Indians shivered in their lodges, for the snow made it hard to get wood for the fires. After a while, their food was gone. The children cried with hunger, and the hunters could find no game at all. Everything had been driven away by the blizzards. Every morning and every night, the old ones went out to look for the great, clear blue arch that tells of the coming of the Chinook. But the gray clouds lay flat on the mountains, and the Chinook did not come. In this camp, there was a poor orphan boy living alone. He suffered even more than the others did, for his teepee was old and tattered, and his clothing ragged. The others in the tribe did not think much of him, and his only friends were the birds and animals. He talked to them, and often they shared his scanty food. Now he called upon them for help. Coyote came, and Owl, and his family, and Magpie, and Weasel. And they sat down in the poor boy's lodge to talk. If only it would get warmer, they said, but Magpie, you know, is a dreadful gossip. He goes everywhere and he sees everything, and consequently, quite often he knows more than ordinary folk. So they asked him the question, what had become of the Chinook? For myself, said Magpie, I do not know, but I have many relatives, and many of them live in the mountains. Some of them will know. I shall go ask them. And he flew away, and after a while he came back. My relatives say, he told them, that there is a great bear living in the mountains, and he has stolen the Chinook and is keeping it fastened up in his lodge so that he may be warm all winter. The friends held a war council. They decided they would go to the mountains and set the Chinook free. So they took a pipe to make medicine smoke, and off they went. In the lead was Magpie, who acted as scout. The others caught birds and small animals for the boy to eat, and at night, Coyote and his family lay all around him and kept him warm. For days and days they traveled. At last, Magpie told them they were near the den of the bear. Indeed, they could hear him. He snarled savagely. Owl sent his wife to look through a hole in the lodge. Look at Owl, isn't he fantastic? Where did I go? Owl sent his wife to look through a hole in the lodge so that they might know how the Chinook was kept. But the bear was very watchful, and when he saw the owl's wife peeking through the hole in his lodge, he took a fire stick and hit her in the eye with it. She flew away crying. Owl then sent his children one by one. Like, really, Owl? And the same thing happened to each of them. But then he went himself. The bear poked him with a fire stick too, and he flew away crying. And that is why even to this day, owls have such big eyes. Let me go, said Weasel. And he went to the lodge and peeked through the hole, as Owl and his family had done. But Weasel, you know, moves very quickly, and when he saw Bear look toward the hole, he ducked his head. And the bear, seeing only his white fur, thought he was just a bit of snow, and he paid no more attention. The Weasel came back to his friends. The bear is huge and very fierce, he said, and he has the Chinook tied up in an elkskin bag in the back of his lodge, farthest from the door. How we can get it, I do not know. I shall make medicine smoke and blow it into the lodge, said the boy. It will make Bear sleepy. So he filled his pipe and sat down outside the lodge to smoke. And he smoked and he smoked. And the bear began to yawn. I'm not going to yawn. And nod his head. At last he went to sleep. Then Coyote crept quietly into the lodge and seized the bag with his teeth and dragged it outside. But they could not untie it, and the thongs were tough, too tough even for Weasel's teeth to cut. While they were discussing what to do, they heard a small voice saying,
"Brother, let me try."
They looked, and there was Prairie Chicken. Look at Prairie Chicken! "Very well, little brother," said the boy. The Prairie Chicken flew up on the bag and began to pick out the stitches along the side of it. When only a few of the stitches were broken, the Chinook poured out of the bag and it began to blow over the country. Snow melted and water began to run. When Prairie Chicken flew down to the ground, mud splashed on his feathers. And that is why, even to this day, the Prairie Chicken has spots. The bear woke up and came roaring out of his lodge, and the friends fled. But the bear could never recapture the Chinook, and ever since then, bears have slept all winter, which is why when they wake up in the spring, they are dreadfully cross. And ever since then, the snow can be deep and the cold bitter, but in a short while, the Chinook will come blowing over the mountains, and everyone will be happy again. So now we'll sing you out if you guys want to go. And now is the time for our offering. If you are visiting, please remain our guest. Your presence is your gift to us. And after the offering, we will remain seated to sing number 25, which for whatever reason I did not actually get in the order of service, in the Open Your Heart songbook. Thank you for your loving hands. Oh no, it is in there. Never mind. Of everything everywhere. All right. And then we'll have another hymn, number 175, in the Singing Living Tradition hymnal. We celebrate the web of life. Please stand as you're willing and able. I don't know that we've sung this one a lot, but it's in 4/4 time and the rhythm's pretty easy, so I think we've got it. Okay.
Magnitude we see.
sing about barnacles, I think, is a good time. Huge fan of barnacles. Right. So we have some guests in the congregation today and a couple of folks who might be tuning on YouTube who are not super familiar with Unitarian Universalism, so I have like a little bit of an intro. I'm working on making it like super quick. Unitarian Universalism gives us the 7 principles to use to evaluate the coherence of various truths that exist. And we, as you use covenant, that is promise, to use them for guidance. The principle I'm focusing on today is the 7th, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we're a part. But it's difficult to talk about any one principle without talking about all of them. They are interdependent themselves. So I recommend everyone to maybe review them. They're in the front of the Seeing the Living Tradition book. And even if you know them, you should read them again. Our religion doesn't give our followers rules about how to use the principles. I'd go so far as to say that Unitarian Universalism doesn't really have followers. We're not followers. We're leaders. We're co-leaders. Ours is called a living tradition because it's alive and ever-changing, and our task is to cultivate it, guide it, steward it, and lead the way for its growth. The principles don't come from nowhere. We also have 6 sources, and they tell us the religious legacies that have informed our religion. As our UU ancestors who had received religious truths encountered other teachings, other new ideas, we formed our own religion to be a coherent means of seeking truth. We wanted to privilege curiosity instead of unexamined belief, so that we could reach spiritual conclusions that continued to interact with a dynamic world. In a covenantal religion, it's often easier to talk about what we think than what we believe, but we do all believe things. We just don't promise to all believe the same things. Today's discussion of animism is my attempt to talk about things I believe and to hopefully demonstrate that the nature of one's beliefs has real-world consequences. Because the things we believe have this interesting way of impacting how we choose to act in the world. Animism doesn't have to be something you believe in, but I appreciate your acceptance of my belief and hope that we all manage to engage in some good old spiritual growth today. I've only ever been a UU. I've never had any other religion. So answering the question, what do you believe, is complicated. If I were Catholic, then people would not ask me what I believe, because even if they disagreed with Catholicism, they would know. Catholicism is pretty clear now what its followers believe. I could say I'm an atheist, meaning that what I believe is not believing in a God, or I'm agnostic, meaning I believe I'm not sure what I believe. But I find both of these unsatisfying, and they both also presuppose the centrality of the monotheism of primarily Christianity. I don't want to say what I don't believe. I want to say what I do believe. So I say I'm an animist. That is, I believe in the ontology of animism. I think it is the best available description of the true nature of reality that's out there. So let me be clear, I'm not an evangelist for animism, just for Unitarian Universalism. Okay, but what even is animism? I'm so glad you asked. I find the dictionary definition of animism to be useless. It's worse than useless. It says basically, animism is the belief in a supernatural universe filled with immaterial souls. Hearing that and knowing me at all probably makes you scratch your head a little. This definition comes from a certain anthropological construct that I don't want to belabor too much, but I have to a little bit, unfortunately. Along with studying religion in college, I also studied anthropology, so please allow me to indulge some of my favorite nerdy stuff for a minute. Anthropologists invented the word animism. because in observing people who were not Europeans closely for like the first time, they found they needed this new word. It's important to understand that early anthropologists were first and foremost tools of imperialism and colonialism. Their quest was to go around the world observing other humans as if they were specimens, to catalog them and their usefulness to their colonizers. That this was the work of anthropologists and their progenitors, the naturalists, who observed plants, animals, and other natural phenomena. So this was early science. The anthropologists made up the word animism because they needed a way to say, these people think things are true and real that are obviously wrong, because what we think is obviously right because God, but their beliefs, though wrong, are logical in their own way, and it would be nice to call them something when we write about them in our books. So in this way, a useful term, animism, was coined as like basically a slur for backward and savage people. Unfortunate. Earlier, I used another word, ontology, which is important here. Soon we'll be done with definitions. I didn't want to have to do this, but having the right word for an idea makes communication easier. When you think of the box of ideas that early anthropologists were using to say what we think is obviously right and what they think is obviously wrong, that box of ideas is an ontology. Animism is the name they gave to the ontology they encountered, and like most conquering people, their ontology didn't have a name. European Enlightenment imperialist ontology doesn't need a short name. I'm not going to say that every time I'm talking about it either. We just have to know what it is because it's the ontology that's our legacy. It primarily asserts, as the fundamentally true assumption about reality, that there's an implicit hierarchy in the world, and at the top of that hierarchy, down through the bottom, all parts have diminishing value and agency. Let's break it down. It goes like this: God the Father, men, their wives and children, their useful animals, animal pests, everything else. The farther you get from the top, the less respect and full personhood or agency you're granted, until you have none. This is the same ontology that makes it necessary to talk about the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the interdependent web of all existence, because this is the unexamined truth about reality that has allowed the theft of land, the enslavement of humans, the subordination of women and children, and our dominion over the natural world. It's not a new story, we know this story. This is really important stuff, and it has no name, which makes it excruciatingly difficult to talk about. We can only talk about it sort of like seeing something out of our peripheral vision. Our ontological legacy is something we can only describe with peripheral language. It's this ontology's language that makes the dictionary definition of animism. That definition of animism means these people can't tell the difference between people, the most important beings in all of God's creation, and things. They think rivers are alive and animals are their ancestors, which is preposterous. These people are primitive savages who mistake the truth of reality because they're inferior beings. This definition is a bad one, so I'll give you a better one. The children's definition, which I would define as the belief that all things, animals, plants, rivers, rocks, etc., have the same realness and are deserving of the same respect as any person because they are all needed together. This definition of animism is real, compact, true, and it doesn't infantilize innumerable indigenous peoples throughout history, or anyone who believes it now, especially children who obviously understand that rocks are as real as people. It honors them it honors that they were just as human as we modern people are, that their ontologies were just as cohesive. It doesn't use words like supernatural or soul because those aren't words animists themselves would have used. Supernatural itself presupposes that there's a divide between the physical world that we all experience with our bodies and the world of God, where we all existed before we had bodies and will return to after our deaths. That word only makes sense from within a Eurocentric ontology, where the physical is seen as profane when compared to the spiritual. Animists don't think that there's a separation between bodies and souls, so they can't think a body is corrupt, just like they don't think only humans have souls. I don't know what a soul is. A college friend of mine once asked me if I thought people had souls, and my response was, well, if I have a soul, then so does that rock over there, and so does that tree. If the soul is the thing that I can call myself, then I have no reason to think that every self doesn't have a soul, isn't a soul. I have no reason to think that animals and plants and other features of the world do not have the same things in their bodies that I have, that we are not all basically animate matter. For me, this extends to some things that we would call inanimate objects. I perceive a soulishness in the built environment in the same way that I do in the natural environment. Like the animacy that one might see from a tree is also in an antique table or a sweater. It's a sort of velveteen rabbit sense of having souls. From the outside, you can observe my belief in animism from the way I interact with living things, like my garden, but also non-living things, like the clothes that I make and mend. The mechanics of this are not particularly important to me. That's something I leave up to the scientists. And if you read what they have to say, reality is a wild, wild place that we barely understand anyway. Words like soul and animal and animate and anima are all attempts of some Latin and Greek-speaking people to describe the essence of what makes something be alive. Animists simply don't make the mistake of thinking that only humans have that thing. Everything has it. That makes existing quite lovely and glorious. Recommend. Animism is primarily a belief system about relationships between all the soulish things, and it assumes that all those relating entities have equivalent agency and that they exist together in reciprocal mutualism. Animism assumes no hierarchy with God at the top and the natural world at the bottom. Instead, it assumes the full autonomy of all agents and requires the negotiations of all of their wills. It means that reality is full of things like me and Coyote and Magpie that are individuals all acting from an impetus to achieve goals, that all these beings are the main characters or the subjects, and none of them are subordinated to any others. They all exist within the same larger system and all have a valuable part to play. This was the reason for the children's message that I chose. One simple Blackfoot folktale easily does a much better job of explaining the ontology of animism than 20 minutes of me talking. This is the power of stories. The impulse is to read a myth like the bear who stole the Chinook and assume it's only a just-so story about how Owl got big eyes one winter when it was very cold. But that's not even a little bit of what it's about. All children's stories exist to tell the youngest among us how to understand reality. They instill ontologies. It is a story about the reality of an environment, in this case a brutal and unrelenting winter. Not our winter, but other people's winters this year. This winter is hard for all the individuals, the people in the village, the lonely orphan boy, sure, but also Magpie and Coyote, Weasel and Owl, and Bear. The boy, because of the sort of animal that he is, a human, understands that he needs help from the animals to do something about the terrible winter. He's observed the pattern of the return of the Chinook and that it's missing. How the plot of this story unfolds isn't an accident. In many cultures of world cultures, this would be a story about the boy returning the Chinook to his people. Think of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. Prometheus is the hero of that story. But this story doesn't have a hero. It has creatures working together. All of them have specific inborn gifts and traits that are necessary for the success of the group. Magpie is a dreadful gossip, which is true if you know anything about magpies. We all laughed. You have a mental picture of magpies. They're fantastic. It's through the network of magpies' relatives that we learn where the Chinook is. Then, because no one is in charge of this group, they all have equal agency. They hold a council, and they decide together what they will do. They will steal back the Chinook. On their journey, it's Coyote and his family who catch food and keep the party warm at night. Owl and his family take turns trying to spy into the bear's den, but they're unsuccessful, and that's not a problem. It tells us something about the nature of owls, and even though Owl is not successful, he still gets to participate. It's Weasel and his white coat in the winter that's invisible to Bear, and even though he doesn't have particularly keen eyesight, he's successful in seeing into the den and reporting back where Bear has the Chinook captured. And then the boy, who because he is a human, can make the medicine smoke, he makes Bear sleepy. And then Coyote, who is sneaky, can steal the bag the Chinook is in. Still, even with their goal at hand, they recognize they need additional help because they can't cut the bag open by themselves. And for that, they need Prairie Chicken's sharp beak. I've been ecstatic about Prairie Chicken all week. I've been running around the house being like, Team Prairie Chicken! I love Prairie Chicken. But still, no one is the hero of the story, even Prairie Chicken. It's a tale of the necessary interdependence of all the individuals who work together to restore the Chinook and preserve them against the brutal winter. The society that tells its children a story like this is communicating more than just a fun story. It's telling them what's true about their reality. We all have gifts. Everyone has something to contribute. Our differences are our strengths. We all use our gifts for the betterment of the whole, and no one is in charge of anyone else. We're all sovereign entities who choose to participate together. A society that tells its children another story, maybe one where the boy is in charge and is the hero, or the bear is killed, or the animals are forced to help, is communicating another truth about reality. These differences matter because they make up our sense of what's real. They allow us or prevent us from having access to certain ways of being in the world. I'm inclined to observe that the legacy of the nameless ontologies of Europe and the West, when manifest at the global scale, are maybe not great. Have you noticed? They sort of dehumanize people and destroy the biosphere. If our culture believes stories like the one that's represented in The Bear That Stole the Chinook more so than we told and believed stories about the supremacy of billionaires and sky wizards who are above us in value, whose success matters more than any of ours, wouldn't that be a culture that was better equipped to prevent dehumanization and destruction of the natural world and violence among beings? Wouldn't that be a culture equipped to elevate the 7 principles, a gentler society that we might want to explore living in? I say I'm an animist because, from the position of having reviewed many different types of ontologies, I think it's the best one. I do not struggle to exist within a reality that says everyone is equal and all are needed. And I think it allows us to engage with an ethical imagination that we don't often consider in our modern lives. If reality were foundationally about the hierarchy of conditional personhood and trying to earn full personhood, trying to achieve the pinnacle of hierarchy, then you necessarily experience others as tools or objects, as instruments for your own use. You need to consider who you are, how you can be best, how you can triumph and subdue and oppress. But if your ontology is animist, then that need isn't there in the first place. Instead, what you're trying to imagine is how do I, one part of this larger system, connect and participate with other equal individuals? Therefore, a question every animist has to ask themselves is less, who am I or what can I achieve, but more, how do I fit? What is the thing that I need to do to support this system that others cannot do? Magpie gossips, Coyote is tricky, Owl has great sight, but what does a human do? That is our purpose and mission, and it grounds individuals in connection with the larger whole, the web. The interdependent web of all existence echoes the webs of species present in an ecosystem. Within ecosystems, species are all having to ask themselves, metaphorically, in various ways, how they can fit. They are all trying to share the energy and resources in the larger system so they can eat and reproduce and live. A particular echo of a Western ontology might want you to believe that nature is red in tooth and claw, that all species and individuals are trying to outcompete one another. But in reality, and in ecology, it's clear that individuals and species in ecosystems are working together and collaborating every bit as much as it looks like they're competing. Ecology reflects back to us many of the same conclusions as animism. In an ecosystem, the answer to the question, how do I fit, is answered by the concept of the niche. In our story, all the characters had niches. Coyotes exist to do coyote things, owl to do owl things, the boy to do human things. He used his unique human tools, the pipe, and his human mind. Those things are part of his niche. As humans, we're often taught to think of ourselves as occupying a niche that's hierarchical. We're at the top of the food chain, or we're apex predators. We try to embody these stories about ourselves that we think are real, but lots of animals can be predators in a system. We don't need more predators. What is a niche that can only be occupied by humans? Humans are very smart. We're the wise ape. What this wisdom really means is not that we're the only ones with tools or language, we're not, but that we're the only ones that have complex, abstract reasoning. We're the only ones who can imagine the future in detail, the only ones who can ask ourselves the literal question of how best to fit in the world. We invent philosophy and religion and government. We're the only ones who can be discerning in this abstract way. Oftentimes, this capability of humans is used as proof of our superiority, but I think it is most useful as a signpost for our greatest gift to the interdependent web. I think that the human niche is that of steward. We are the animal who can envision the system that we're in. We can see the patterns. We can understand what ecology is and how energy moves through ecosystems. We can look at the human systems like language and technology and religion, and we can see what they're for. We can make them and unmake them. We can decide. And if we would be wise, we can use our human gifts to decide in a way that preserves the greater whole. I find that the religion of Unitarian Universalism creates an opening for an animist spirituality. There's room for animism in the big tent and at the long table of Unitarian Universalism. Even if animism is not for you, I hope that the concept of humans as wise stewards who design meaning systems that sustain the biosphere is compelling. I invite you in reflections to consider what sorts of stories you can tell yourself and others that support these ways of being and how you might embody them. And now we'll have a moment of silent meditation. reflections, I would invite folks to share for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Gemma. Wonderful service. One thing that I feel could possibly help with the thought of animism, as far as like a philosophy, theology of a mantra or japa. Thankfully, soul sourcing for true self arising Atman, the goodness of nature, Prakriti, the goodness of human nature, Purusha. And something that may be helpful as well with the seventh principle is just somewhat of an edit from Ram Dass. And he says something like, resting in unity, can you respect diversity? Something similar to that. And then also to do with the end of the service, I just want to remind us all of free and responsible ways of understanding. Thank you.
I knew it would be wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you put into that. And, well, you're great. And I was also reminded before you talked, when we were singing Thank You for Your Loving Hands, it reminded me of the first time I came to UU and we sang that song. And it said, we know all the gifts you bring. I thought, here we are paying attention to each other and appreciating each other rather than directing our attention to the front of the room where one person is leading us. And it's an example of what you're talking about, that we are, the lack of hierarchy and the fact that we enjoy so much being part of a unified group. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much, Gemma. I didn't realize I was an animist. and I'm an ecologist. But a couple other just touchstones. Jack Gladstone, who is a Blackfeet, troubadour, storyteller, songwriter, singer. He has a wonderful song, The Bear That Stole the Chinook. So I can't wait to go re-listen to that now that I know the legend. And then as a wetland ecologist, I always really loved the phrase, eat or be eaten at the wetland cafe. And it's that whole thinking of circularity and that we're all in this together and we're responsible for our part. So thank you, Gemma.
Apparently this corner is going to hog the mic. I just was so interested in the part of your service tying it back to the children's story, and even though that was a story from Blackfoot tradition, that story could have been read in any preschool and nobody, whether you use or anyone else, would have thought that was an inappropriate story to read to children. So why are we so okay, and maybe it means that on some level all of us know that this is a truth that we teach to our children, and yet then we grow up and we don't treat the world that way and others in our community that way. So at some level, do we have to get back to what we teach our children and then lose along the way?
Wonderful insight.
And I liked that you gave us a challenge at the end to find our own story that's going to, we have homework.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
I'm new to this church, although I have stopped in a couple times. I'm primarily going to Plymouth Congregational, but I feel just as much home here as I do there. And a long time ago, not too long actually, I've living here in Helen. I've only been here 24 years, but it was somewhere in the middle. And I was hearing Mother Mary tell me something. And I thought, what is this? Her voice is so soft, I cannot hear her. Well, how am I going to hear her? So I thought if I went to the Catholic Church, where she is revered, it seemed like, and I didn't hear her there. In fact, I took 9 months of training to be a Catholic so I could hear her. And I was told by Father Shea, who I absolutely love, and who has recently retired from Lady of the Valley Church, is that correct? Okay. And he said, well, okay, it's time for you to become a Catholic. And I said, okay, I'm here. He said, now you must get rid of all other religions to join us. I said, I can't do that. I'm confirmed and baptized in the Lutheran Church, and I've gone to the Christian Church and the Methodist Church and the Episcopal Church, and I think I'm doing a Sufism when I go to dances of universal peace, and I do Blackfeet and Native American rituals. I don't think I can give up any of those. He said, you must give them up to become a Catholic. I said, I cannot. He said, you cannot join us. Now, Father Shea still knows my name. When I come to visit, he says, you can't take communion. You must cross your hands over your chest, and I will put something on your forehead, but you cannot partake of communion. And I went to Brenda McClellan's church. She's an Episcopal priestess, I call her. She said all people can take communion, and that's an Episcopal church, which is very much like the Catholic Church. I'm like, how is this? And here, in this environment, I feel so welcomed. I feel like I've always been here, and yet why do we have to all these separations? So thank you. You made my day.
Back to this corner. The wisdom corner. No, I just... So I was raised Quaker, and one of its big attractions is its lack of hierarchy and its lack, at least on the West Coast, of clergy. That we can all communicate with whatever we consider spirit without an intermediary, and that the message and the wisdom and the leadership come from the members of the church, just like it does here, and so it makes me very comfortable to be in the UU circle.
And now we're going to stand as we're willing and able to sing number 318. I recently learned that this is one of Becky's favorite hymns, and she's on vacation today. So I will be thinking about including her when we sing. We Would Be One, number 318.
To pledge ourselves anew.
Catherine could please come forward to extinguish the chalice as we read together from our order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now let's try to get in a circle-ish shape to sing Shalom for our closing.